All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming to the webinar today. Today, we're going to be talking about the customer-centric dealership of 2030, and really where this dealership will go is something that we'll look at here. Let's see, one second here. Apologies as we get this. There we go. And the real question we're going to get to is how may our dealership need to change for the second machine age, or as equipment gets more intelligent and more connected? What do we need to do and where do we want to go? So a little bit first about Machinery Advisors. It's a group of consultants that combine under one umbrella, specializing in industrial equipment. And there's numerous people here with different specialties within MAC. I'm one of those consultants, and I am the executive partner at the Exemplary Group. As I mentioned, I do work through Machinery Advisors, and I'm also a facilitator for Currie Management. My background, I started with military logistics support analysis, which is basically you take a tank or plane or anything in the military, you look at how often it's going to break, when it breaks, what spares do you need, who's going to fix it, what training do they need, what tools they need, and you combine that and then you apply it to how are we going to do that when we're not deployed and when we are deployed. So that led to a second step, which was hardware scanners and document scanners and getting into systems integration and software combined with the hardware. Taught me a lot in that area. From there, going to the cloud and how you use software to determine the configuration of servers and other equipment more efficiently. Finally, the next step was to get into industrial equipment, which really is beginning to combine this background in a full circle, going back to the military equipment logistics support. So working across a variety of industries, ag, construction equipment, material handling, power generation, power backup, and HVAC, among others. So I sort of joke that it's everything that's metal with wheels, without wheels, or sometimes with wheels, which would be modular buildings. So there's a little bit about me, but let's get to what we're here to talk about today. And that's looking at where a traditional equipment dealer has been and where they may be going. If you look traditionally, we see that we have sales, which feeds service, parts, rental, and that latter part we know combines for absorption, and it's sort of the golden goose that keeps giving for everything in the dealership and what's there in the dealership. And there's a lot of information out there. We work today to help everybody, but as I talked about, it's sort of a catch-22, because if we keep our head down focused on this entirely, then how are we prepared for the future, and how do we bridge that? And what I'd like to do today as we talk about that is begin to present some things that may help bridge us to the dealer of the future. We don't know exactly what that looks like, but we can learn from some other industries. And looking at this now, what we see is a couple of things. We see that today we'll talk about customer support, integrated solutions, and customer success as three potential parts of your dealership that may be added to what you have today. And I'm going to spend the bulk of the webinar unpacking these and going through them and helping you understand a little bit more about what they are and what they can be. So first, let's take customer support and look at it. What's the difference between customer support versus service? And in a very simplistic way, equipment gets service, software and solutions, which I might call hardware and software, gets support. And in many ways, it's not different, but in some very critical ways it is. Mainly, if you look at the way industrial equipment is built, service is built around the idea that you roll a truck either to get to the field or get to the shop. And when a truck rolls, then there's going to be revenue created. That is the fundamental part of it. When you look at the way that the profitability is built, it's built around the idea that, hey, we want to increase our utilization of techs, we want to increase our billing efficiency, and that's going to get us a higher gross margin on service and higher profitability. When I look at support, it changes in that when I have software support, I'm always supporting it. And it's people will call in. I'm not necessarily rolling a truck. I can do a lot remotely. When I get hardware involved, then I may have to go out into the field to fix that hardware at times. I might be able to do that remotely as well. In this space, we're going to see a hybrid evolve. It's really already evolving, where you're going to have both the software in the machine and the equipment that interfaces with the machine, and then you're also going to have to figure out how to do that. And we see that in precision ag today as we look at this and how it's moving. But what I see is in this space, the support function isn't really built out as strongly as it is in the software and IT space, and there's lessons that can be learned there. When I think of support, there's a few things that come together, and I put it together as the 3 T's. Across the way, managing worldwide support for both the hardware companies, the software companies, and helping map out how military logistics support is done globally. What we see here is that the triage is one of the first things that's important. And in support, what you're looking to do is understand quickly what the answer is. Can I solve it right there, or how do I steer them to the right resource? In this case, this will tie in very much to the overall call volumes and what's happening on the calls. And that's where ticketing comes in. So with ticketing and support, and the way a support ticketing system would work, there's applications like Zendesk, there's applications like HelpScout or Freshdesk that help you track support tickets versus how things would normally work with software. And so what we would look at there is, how are we tracking these? A key difference here is every call would be tracked. So I understand, did somebody call in and really it was a training issue? Did somebody call in and we're getting a lot of problems with a certain area in the software? Where are the problems and what can we do about it? In the work that I've done with different dealerships today, there's not this level of tracking and triage. And it's one of the areas that can particularly help during the peaks in planting and harvest. A triage person doesn't need to be as well trained as, say, a precision tech or even a parts specialist, but it's something that you want to make sure that they can get a quick read on the customer, understand where it needs to go, and think more like ER, where when you go into ER, you check in, you see a nurse who quickly assesses everything, and then they get you to the right specialist. That's what we want here. One of the biggest differences in support that we see as well is, I don't know how many of you do your own taxes with TurboTax or other software that's out there, but you'll notice they have a lot of self-help, and they even have communities that provide support. And in industrial equipment, typically self-help hasn't been a big driver because it takes revenue from service, and we don't want to do that. In support, where you're making the money regardless of people calling or not, the more self-help you can get in place, the happier customers are and the less your expenses are. So it's a real win-win. The other key thing with tools is that these days for support, particularly as things are more software oriented, people want multiple ways to reach you. And you're already seeing this today, again, with even with just traditional service. They may call, they may text. There may be a way that you're using your phones to better communicate through the iPhone capabilities and FaceTime. But we want to make sure that we can do this effectively and efficiently. So we need the tools that help us support, because our support is shifting, or will shift, away from just mechanical equipment to equipment that it could be a software problem, it could be a mechanical problem, it could be something that's a hybrid between the two. And that's something that we want to make sure that we have in place and that we are ready for as we go. So this will be an evolution of what's there today. And I know that in dealerships today, one of the areas is, to start with, is just the service techs using mobile apps and mobile tools. And that's one of the areas that we see across the board. It greatly increases profitability today. It begins to set everybody up for better service and help in the future. And so the more tools that you can set up today, even around traditional service, and begin to bridge into support, will become very, very important as we move forward. And it's a way to grow more as things get more technical and there's more software and data. The second part of support that is a structure that will be very helpful if you look at other industries is that support is typically tiered out. And in some ways, we see that in traditional service today, where we have a precision tech, or we have a master technician, we have kind of the newer tech or level 1 tech. This is a little bit different, where what we want to do is we set up the first level of person that can handle breadth but doesn't have depth. And then level 2 and 3, you're moving down a depth level. So your precision tech in this model would be like a level 2 or 3. One of the areas we're going to have is this idea of, I'm dealing with data, I'm dealing with software, I'm dealing with the equipment. So how do we get this set up and how do we structure it is going to become very important, and how we figure out how to layer support into our existing service today and make it work. The other key thing is that we want to make sure that we have the proper data and dashboards there, that we don't get too confused with the wrong issues, and that we look at the right ones as we go. Support, particularly around software, is often built around the idea of workarounds or patches, or how do we get this information out there. As a dealer, one of the challenges that we'll have is that the OEMs or the software developers will actually have the ability to solve the real problem. So you're also going to have a level, what I would say is a level 3 here, that'll go out to the OEM or the software developer, and you'll have problems you're waiting on to hear back from them. Learning how to manage and track that will become an important part of the dealerships that are more technical and provide better service. So that's kind of unpacking at a high level the customer support that you're going to layer in, the idea of what are the tools that I need, the people I need to do that, and how do I structure it. The next part is looking at integrated solutions. This is an area that probably interests me the most in the industrial equipment space today. I think there's a lot to be learned from other industries. If you look at the computer IT industry, and the way that their channel works. So that channel has what's called 2-tier distribution. There's large-scale distributors, and then there's resellers. These days, there's a lot more what are called system integrators. But when it started, if you go back 30 or 40 years ago, people made a lot of money on their hardware. And in the company I had, when we sold a scanner, our margin was 40%, and you only had to sell a couple a month to have a good month. Over time, that hardware kept going down and down in price. And we see this in ag today. The gross margin on the sale of equipment is fairly low. From there, people morphed into software. And I'm going to provide hardware, but I really want all the software I sell with it. We're only starting to see this happen in our industries here. And how is this software there? And can I make money on it? And so really in the software here, I give an example of Microsoft, where the software companies would also have partners, and those partners could be involved in installation, but they could also be involved in integration or customization. And those latter services led to the third box, which is a services-centric model. And in this model, you're less concerned about making money on the hardware and software, and more concerned about how do I provide the services that my customer needs. And one of the key lessons here is that when you integrate into a customer's environment, you're very tightly integrated with them, and it becomes very hard to displace you. So this is an opportunity that we're going to see happening in this industry now. You see it now, people starting to try to work to do it with the precision data and the other system that's there. It may happen in other parts of the ag community, farm management systems, for example. But this is an area that's evolving rapidly. And as dealers, one of the things that we have to watch here is where a company is saying that I want to use a dealer network, and where are they saying I want to work direct. And one of the nice things about the services part is if one of your customers has certain things that do go through a dealer and certain ones that don't, you can still have solutions and integrate all of those and be the close advisor to that customer. And this is why I think learning how to handle this broader array is very, very important as we bridge to the future. Now, what does it mean about making money? In my diagram with the people here, you'll notice I still have a lot of text. The text will still be one of the key drivers. The other driver, though, is the suit, or somebody who's what I'll call professional services. So in this, as opposed to I'm actually working on equipment, now I'm going to be working with software or data or other aspects like that. And this is the third box over on the right side here, where we offer integration services, professional services, we build custom applications, we look at what our customer needs, and we fill the gaps between the equipment and what their needs are. We fill the gap between the equipment and the systems they have in place. And because we fill that gap, we can be in a position to be the highest trusted, most valuable advisor. And that's what we want to get. We want to move away from, we're just buying equipment and I can go online and click a button and buy it. So we're trying to get to where we provide everything that fills that gap and that difference. Now, in that, what we see is that in the middle with software and data, it's not completely clear yet where, as a dealer, we'll be able to make money. Typically, the software gross margin is one area. Support and upgrades, charging for that will be another area. And there could be other pieces in there. The hardware here, which really is equipment, I'm just trying to use the other industry as an example, will really stay roughly the same with gross margin, service, parts, and rental. So learning how to combine all these and package and price them will become a very important question, because we also will have our own goals and desires, and we'll be playing off what the OEMs that we work with are. But at the end of the day, it's going to be about the customer and their solution. And we want to offer those in a way that helps them and gives us profit. Now, what's the competitive advantage for this? I found in my experience, it's really strong. And that is that what happens is that you get something where the dealer customer relationship is unique. And a single OEM can't replicate it. A single software provider can't replicate it. And because now you've taken these services and combined them, you're the only one that can offer that. And it sets up a very tight, unique relationship. It makes it a solution, not a commodity. And that helps as they go through their equipment cycles, because now the equipment comes into that overall solution. And the most important part is you can become part of what I call the customer's fabric. That means when they look at their systems and processes, you're an integral part of it. You aren't just a replaceable widget. This takes some time and it'll take some shifting to get there. This can also lead to fairly high turnover in certain areas like selling. If somebody's used to just selling equipment based on horsepower and they don't know how to think in terms of an integrated solution and a digital solution, an integrated solution, then that's going to be challenging for them. So there can be a need for new types of people here that are going to be very important. Now, the next one is customer success. This is the third box that I had, and the third one here. So I want to take a little bit of time, and a lot of people here may not have heard of customer success. It really came to be in the SaaS community, where what we're doing there is we're trying to say, hey, what can I do to keep my recurring revenue going? And if you think of software as a service, a lot of you guys, everybody here probably uses Office 365 as an example, or Google as an example. And what will happen is, if I'm adding customers on a continual basis, my revenue is going up and everybody's very happy. If I'm losing customers, my recurring revenue is going down. And that is a term that's called churn. And so what we're looking at here is we're monitoring, are we losing customers and how fast, or are we gaining them and how fast? So it's a little bit different than customer retention, which retention is what percentage of our customers did we keep. Now, the software companies then begin to ask, well, how do we reduce this churn? What can we do? Well, there's two paths. I add new customers or I keep existing customers. And we all sort of know the best customer is an existing customer mantra. So we want to focus on how to keep those. And yes, we want to add new customers, but if I can't keep my existing ones, it puts so much pressure on my marketing and sales to always keep the funnel going that it makes it hard to get the great recurring revenue that feeds the company year in and year out. So then the question becomes, well, what's the best way to keep the customers? And initially, people were looking at, hey, when they go to leave, let's try to stop them. Let's wait. Let's talk to them and give them a deal. But if you've ever been in a relationship and somebody says, hey, I don't want to date you anymore, that's a little bit late to say, hey, let's see if we can fix it. So in the software world, they also started looking when they start. They said, well, gosh, let's look at onboarding and how we can get people to start to understand our solutions better and what we're doing. And if you think of this in the equipment space, instead of showing up with the equipment and, hey, here are the controls, here's how you drive it, here's a quick half day by the salesperson, call us if you have any questions. now you get into more of an approach of, hey, let's teach you how this overall system is going to work. Again, if we have precision on it, how am I using it? What software do I use? What are the different controls? What buttons do I click on? How do I get what I want to get done? This becomes a very important part as things get more technical. Most dealerships I see don't have strong onboarding yet. And this will be driven partially by the OEMs, but it's a very important area to look at. The final part where customer success came in was the realization that if you're helping your customer when they rely on you day in and day out to be successful, that they're going to stay with you through thick and thin. And this is really what customer success is it's a way to help work with your customer and understand what their needs are in a way that you can then show them how to use your products and services to meet their needs and be successful. And it's not a sales perspective where you're trying to get them to buy something or fill a need when they are buying something. And it's not a service or support perspective where you're trying to fix something when it's broken or do planned maintenance. It's a perspective of where are you trying to go? How can we help you? Listening and then helping fill those gaps. And it can steer people towards training, can steer people towards sales, it can steer them towards support. It can show that your dealership new products or services that you need to offer. And that leads to these capabilities that you want for customer success. So for a customer success function, what you're going to want is somebody that can understand the customer. They're good at listening and learning. They care for the customer success. They love helping them succeed. And they also understand how to map all that to your product, services, and solutions. Now, in the software world, what you're seeing happen is that a company like Salesforce will provide this for free to their largest customers. So for those of you that are familiar with the ABCD breakdown of customers and your A-level customers, then this is something that you may bundle in and provide a customer success person. We've seen this happening in different language in the industrial space, call it fleet management. Well, I'm going to come in and help you manage your fleet. But fleet management is still about the cost of the fleet, and success in that measure is based on the idea of, hey, if I can have this fleet come into this particular space and lower the cost, that's success. But that's not always exactly what it is. The equipment isn't always just about cost. And particularly in the ag space, it's mission critical. And that's one of the things that makes the ag space different than virtually every other industrial equipment space, is it's mission critical, has to perform, very tight timelines. We've got to get this done, unless you're in permanent crops or year-round planting. But assuming you're going through seasonal work, that's going to be the case. So in these industries, now, if somebody's smaller, they can pay for these services, but it overall helps strengthen things. And what we see is that the type of people who are best at this role are teachers, nurses, consultants, people that have been out in a position where they want to help others succeed and they care about them. It's not a sales role and it's not a service role. It's a new role that is worth looking at and learning about for this bridge to the future. So that's the three big areas there. And it also led there to three metrics that are going to be important for how you bridge to the future. And so I wanted to take a little bit of time in the webinar and talk through these so that we can go through these and talk about them. Now, for those of you that aren't data people, this is one that understanding these can give you an idea. And some of these you've heard before. Some you may not have. And the first one is churn, which again is how fast am I losing? Am I losing customers or not? What percentages are being lost? The second one is customer lifetime value. And one thing about industrial equipment, a lot of people are surprised when I say that industrial equipment dealers are a lot like SaaS software. They're like, how can we even be like SaaS software? It's in the cloud, you don't install it, there's not equipment. The reason why they're similar is they're both recurring revenue models. And I think that's the most fundamental thing I've learned, is that ultimately being an industrial equipment dealer means that you're building a recurring revenue business. 30 or 40 years ago, you were building a sales business. Today, it's building a recurring revenue business. And that's why customer lifetime value and understanding it is so important. After that, I have what I've dubbed an integrated solutions to equipment sales ratio. And this shows how your dealership is evolving out of what is an area that can be commoditized or where dealers can be disintermediated. That's a $10 word for left out of the buying process, like Tesla. And as opposed to integrated solutions where you're the highest, most trusted advisor with them. So let me take a minute and unpack these, and then we'll get to where we go through some of the questions. So churn is a area that we look at for the customer. It's the total number of customers lost in the period you choose. So it could be monthly, yearly, quarterly, divided by the total number at the start of that period. So the key here is going to be how you define a customer, how you define losing a customer, and what's the period tracked. Now, this is much harder to do for an industrial equipment dealer than a SaaS software company that charges one monthly fee per month, where you may have service, you may have parts, you may have rental, you have sales. Do I look at all of those across the board? Do I look at them individually? That's the type of question you want to look at there. I like revenue churn, which is the total revenue loss in the period over the total revenue at the start of the period. These two together give a good picture, because if I lose an A customer that was 10% of my revenue, well, that's a pretty big revenue hit, but only shows up as one customer lost. And that's why we want to track both of these. So how are we doing on these? And in this industry, what we see, if you look at Mac and their good to great dashboard, they have customer retention, and we measure customer retention. And so on the customer retention, this is something that tracks, are we keeping the customers? What are we doing to keep them? The software world looks at churn to say, what can we do to avoid losing them? And in many ways, I like that better, because I think we tend to naturally avoid pain. And so now it's painful when you lose a customer. What can we do to avoid losing those customers? Which goes back to the customer success and how do we keep them there and keep them happy. The customer lifetime value is another one that's important. Here, again, what you're saying is, what's the total customer value per period times the total number of periods in the lifespan. Now, this is challenging in the industrial equipment space. Is my period the life cycle of the equipment? Is it how long that customer typically holds it? Is it on a yearly basis? And if I think of this as if I buy equipment and held it through its life, so let's say I buy a tractor and I hold it for 5 years, then how much am I going to spend on parts, service, rental, other things? If I'm offering integrated solutions, any software that's in there, other services, what's that going to look like? So this is something that we want to begin to calculate and look at. In this, what you're going to want to do is also evaluate the lifetime value of an A customer versus, say, a C or D customer, and how to do that. We have some examples of this that are more detailed, and if you follow up, we'd be happy to provide those and go into them. You have to be careful here, because it'd be easy for this to become a science project, and then it's not enough value for the time you put in. But why I like this is one of the best decision-making metrics you have when you're planning how to invest in both your sales and your service and customer success and the solutions. It also helps you make good pricing decisions. So, gosh, do we give a discount here? Do we not? What's the overall value of this customer going forward, and what are we going to have? So in the software world, they also get into customer acquisition costs and customer retention costs, but these are going to be things that are used to help evaluate what you need to invest. So this is a metric that isn't set up well today. At Mac, we're doing a lot with our groups and other people to set them up, and I think it's an area that would be wise to continue to look at and expand in your use. The next one is the integrated solution to equipment sales ratio. And I like this one because it's a comparison of what am I doing to eat today versus eat tomorrow? And in the theory that I have here, the integrated solutions are the future for dealers. So what I want to see is that I want to see this percentage of either total deals or total revenue coming from integrated solutions increasing quarter over quarter, year over year, until it's the bulk of what I'm doing. Because in equipment sales only, the dealer is at risk of being just a commodity provider. And what we don't want to do as dealers is just be a box deliverer, and we don't want to be somebody who's deployed a technician at a low cost that's not profitable. We want to offer high value integrated solutions to our customers with professional services, support, and service contracts. At the bottom, I show address the pricing and packaging challenge. And I think that when you look at this, I bring this up because let's look at support for a minute. It used to be 30 years ago, if you called Microsoft for support, they'd bill you $100 an hour. Today, if I buy a Microsoft computer and I have Office 365, I basically get support by calling up and getting that support. Now, on my hardware, I have to buy extended warranty to get that support on an ongoing basis. Warranties are a phenomenal mechanism to lock in parts and service because it's effectively what it does when you sell a warranty. Well, how do you price that? How do you package it? Do you tell people that you're charging them for the support, or is it all bundled into the price when they purchase? These are questions that each dealer will have to make and decide, and then understand how it flows into their operations and the profitability to make sure they're hitting the optimal profit as they go. And that's where we'll come in and we help map that out and help customers do that. So as you go into this, if you have questions, it's an area that you can reach out and ask as you're learning or work with your peer group if you're in any. So that's, and so as a quick summary here, what we're looking at is this idea that as equipment evolves, dealerships, and everybody can probably read this, but I'll go over it quickly, and this is here for your follow-up. As equipment evolves, dealerships may consider offering customer support as a function, integrated customer solutions with professional services, and customer success. These are new areas. They'll take some time to evolve. It'll take some money through trial and error to get them right. But I believe they'll be very important to your success in maintaining a close relationship with the customer. In that process, you'll gain, right, a tighter relationship with the customer, new sources of recurring revenue, and a stronger foundation for the evolution and revolution of equipment. And this is what's, I think, the reason to be doing this. The three metrics that bridge the future are churn, customer lifetime value, and this integrated solutions to equipment sales ratio, and how I begin to track that and monitor that. These aren't necessarily day-to-day numbers. These are more, I'll call them strategic numbers. So quarterly, annually are the pace that we'd want to look at there. And the core of it all is these three areas that I'm saying are the initial bridge to consider are based on this simple philosophy. Our customer success will be our dealership success. And that's really the philosophy that would be the foundation of all this. So with that, for further discussion, if you want, you can reach me here. I've had my information in the slide deck if you follow up, or you can write it down now, and be happy to have any conversations. It's a really fun area that's great to talk about. And with that, that's about it for now. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Right. Hi, Jim. There was a question that came in.
Okay.
It was a question about how to collect and normalize the data that provides the insight for metrics. Like, what's the best process for collecting and normalizing that data to use for the metrics?
That's a good question. I think right now the simplest way is off of, well, there's two ways. Let me put it this way. So the dealer management system will be the foundation for all of these metrics because they're going to be revenue based. And in that, the descending sales list would be the start of what I would use initially. And from that, you can take it and compare it period to period using some way that can show what you've got as revenue or not having revenue. Now, in the way to if in that data, it may be that you want to use a BI tool like Target or Power BI or something like that you can put the data in and then do a little bit more analysis with it if you wanted to. But that's where I think you'll begin to see that. Now, that would really be where I would start with this, and then beginning to look at that and understand, okay, do we have that data? Do we not?
All right, thank you. There's another one that came in here. It says, outside of ag, what other industrial OEMs have this vision of customer success for their dealers and are most advanced, i.e. material handling, CE, heavy trucks, generators? Can we learn from them?
Well, what I would say now is I'd actually say that um, even in ag, I see very little on customer success right now, and that it's really more the SaaS software world that has it. But because of the recurring revenue overlay, I think that there's a big opportunity. One thing to remember is for the manufacturers at this point, they aren't recurring revenue based, right? Their recurring revenue is part sales. And now as they add in software, other parts, they might become there. But the real model for this and the real place to look is in the SaaS software world. So there's tools, there's products out there that are built for customer success. Gainsight might be one, for example, but I would look at the SaaS software world, and Salesforce certainly has a lot around it. Virtually every SaaS software company does at this point. I imagine even DIS does, for that matter.
I think so. If there's any follow-up questions on that, you can send them to the chat and we'll ask them as well. Oh, there was one follow-up actually. It says, you suggest to add 3 functions in a dealership as an overlay. Should we rethink the dealer's departments now?
That is a very good question. There's a saying that form follows function. And so my instinct would be that I would begin to think that way. The functions today are more internally focused, right? It's the way that dealers manage their dealership. And instead, if you looked at it from the customer first and built it down from the customer, how would you build it? And what does the customer care about the most? Some of these functions are really hard to place. And so where would I put customer success? Is it a new department or not? If I have integrated solutions or professional services, where does that go? So I do think that it'll take some trial and error, and that, yeah, I would begin to think about it as I put them into place today, and look towards, again, here, you can look towards the IT world and the way that a system integrator with hardware and software works as a model. So.
Perfect, thank you. The next question that popped in was, do you have some examples of dealers that have used Target?
Yes, and not off the top of my head. If you follow up, I can see about getting some of those to you, but I don't have them right at my fingertips. But yeah, absolutely. There's been there are several. I know there's several dealerships that use it.
Perfect, thank you. Those are all the questions that came in related to any of the content that you presented here today. So I'll give another minute or two for any final questions or comments from the audience. But if you'd like to say anything on closing thoughts, Jim, the floor is all yours now.
I think the main closing thought I would have is that I think we're going to enter a period of where it's important to be able to experiment and learn. And I think in the industrial equipment space, especially among dealers, there's a strong process orientation, and this is how we do things, and here's the process, and here's the task. And you're entering a phase when that may need to change. We think we want to try one thing, we need to evolve and try another. And so more of an iterative approach, which could be maybe a lean startup approach, or let's try this and see if it works. And then if it does, we'll keep it. If it doesn't, we'll evolve. That type of evolution thinking is going to be very important as we move forward. Even these possible areas here, these may be right, they may not be right. We're going to learn over time and understand what's there, and go from there. So that's one of the areas that I would most say is that mentality is a big change, I believe. And the other big change is that if I look at ag, I've said it's not a precision department, it's going to be precision dealership. Likewise, it's not that I have a technical person on staff, It's that all my people on staff are technical and that they're comfortable with technology. So these are the changes that underlie a lot of this, is that we're going to have to evolve that way and begin to get to where we're more comfortable with technology, where we're comfortable with testing and trying and evolving as things change around us, because they're going to keep changing and they're going to change quickly. So one quick note, Miller Bradford is one of the dealers in construction equipment that uses Target. There's a few other that aren't on the top of my mind that we can get, but that's what I would end with. So is that's a good area to go with there. So but that mentality is the biggest part here. And then you can learn about these. Let's learn from other industries and let's take that, apply the best, and drop the rest. So that would be what I would say.